Hey guys, I wasn't originally going to make this video. I was going to talk about other things because I was trying to work on a presentation. I was trying to put together a cool PowerPoint, with slides and audio in the background and just cool graphics. And I'm still going to do that, but there are some things that I wanted to talk about in particular to sort of set the premise. Because it seems like as things are accelerating, we don't have a lot of time to maintain the formalities, and we sort of got to break through. I mean, there's a lot of people that will need a lot of work done in terms of understanding how they think and how they interpret what's going on, because things seem like they're gradually going to get worse before they get better as far as just our overall collective lifestyle. I think obviously there will be some individual differences between us, but in terms of like the whole socioeconomic system, and so I want to start off by saying that the Constitution, to me, sort of was what, back in those days, they wrote to sort of as a creed or a sort of covenant that explains that we're not the result of governments and economic systems. Those things are the result of us. What we are the result of is this natural order of the universe, the cosmos. If you want to call it God, you can call it God, but if you want to call it cosmos, somebody tried to tell me that that's pantheism, to think that God is in the trees and everything else. But it's no different from giving that a label and then giving the worship of a certain kind of jealous God as anthropomorphism. I mean, we have these terms, and that's one of the things that I really want to go deep into with the presentation, is talking about language, talking about how words pertain to thoughts and ideas and aren't the actual thing. But at the same time, that words have a vibrational frequency. I can project my voice and my intention as the same as star stuff, as this evolutionary consciousness, and I can project myself to aggression, to peace, to love, to compassion, to these things without using words. I can give a look. I mean, the way we interpret reality is beyond just this intellectual or these dogmatic battles that we seem to have. So I really want to get rid of that and dissolve that. And one of the major points here is that if we're not the result of governments and all these institutions, then people need to understand that their intrinsic value rises above that, and that governments, corporations, economic systems, and all of these subsequent ideas need to fall under order of your own consciousness. You have the power. Each of us has the power to interpret reality. And we're not any better or any worse off than anyone else. And so once you come to the realization of this, once you've dug this dirt and you really take a look at all of these things, you start to see the main oppressive action that all these institutions put on people, and the way the system drives people to be inherently violent and aggressive and overly competitive, and these sort of things that create the narcissism in our society. And I just cannot get past this idea that as government gets more and more stringent, and this whole collusion of bankers and politicians, I mean, you already know that it's a problem that pervades just our entire way of life, and it just happens to represent itself in the organizations that we have. And I don't want to say that government is bad. What I want to say is that the force that government uses by threat and guns and violence to put imposition on people, when things are better off without that. I mean, just life in general, just any scientific psychological studies shows that the constant imposition of force and violence and all of these things that government just represents as a collective is a problem for humanity and for this planet. I mean, that's what we're trying to get at. I mean, just, I don't know how else to put it together, and I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that there are all these differences between people, and that people have to go through their sort of experience to re-identify themselves with something larger than just an institution. And we will have to engage in this sort of mentorship and the sort of change in schools and but it starts with getting past this idea that there is some organization that is better for me than my own interpretation of reality. That just needs to dissolve itself as an argument. And from there, you start to see you have the power to create an institution that is built on the change that you are. You know, it goes back to what Gandhi says, is being the change that you want to see. Well, that just means that people have to, if you want to be more valuable than wages that are printed out of thin air, determined by somebody else, your worth is determined by somebody else in the current system. You know, that's how this whole leadership hierarchy is built. When you start to see yourself in the eyes of how your leadership regards you, I mean, you just need to take control of how you govern your own life and so on. But it also transcends to a collective means. It also means that we work together as a community because of all of the amount of energy it takes to sustain life. And one of the things that I'm definitely going to go into has to do with solutions. We need to really talk about and define solutions in communication and food and these things that sort of engender this empowerment and this idea that we can govern our own lives. I mean, we are steadily waiting for the oppression to build up. We scavenge, or scourge for all these juicy stories to talk about the collapse and everything that's going on, but we're still waiting for these institutions to impose what they think the solution is on us. I mean, this thing is like micromanaged into our identification, what we need to get around. I mean, you can see that once you start to establish yourself, it's also gonna put a target for anyone who questions the status quo, because the status quo from the top across the board is telling people we're gonna have to use more force, we're gonna have to use more guns, we're gonna have to use more spying on the general people in the form of military power. So when you try to travel somewhere and you tell yourself or you tell your friends and family that you don't need a government identification to travel freely across the planet or across countries, you're going to start to see some really violent actions. I mean, you'll just see people use more force and more guns and that sort of thing, because that is the paradigm that we face. When a people start to rise up and realize that they are not the culmination of governments, but that they are inherently sovereign as being part of this evolutionary process. I mean, I'm not the result of some queen in England or whatever else. I mean, it's just absurd. I'm not the result of what some powerful politician determines is the proper course for humanity, or whatever realm they feel they control. I mean, that's what people need to start to see. And this is the sort of thing that people always speak out about and always get assassinated over and always get killed over. I mean, if you want to look at it religiously, if you want to look at it politically, it doesn't matter what faction you choose. The result is always the same when it deals with oppression and constant violence and force. And I'm experiencing this on every level, which is why I've just felt like it needs to come out, because it's not like I'm just trying to put government as this distant boogeyman, because government has a say through its organizations, through things like Council on Foreign Relations, which has a board member that owns one of the establishments that I currently work at, which is bonds. So once you start to see where the leadership is in terms of government, in terms of how the government tells it needs to manage its business and its money, and this constant, especially now that things are rough, the government is saying we need more money, we need to increase taxes, we need all these things, so we got to keep sucking this thing dry so we can keep this thing going. I mean, this whole status quo And once again, you can just put that anywhere. You can put that in the institutions that it has in terms of education. You can put that in its welfare programs. This is a whole web, a whole network, and people get sort of apathetic and think, well, I don't want to pay attention to politics or these things. They feel that they're separate from, but it's all connected, and it all is relevant to your lifestyle and to the process of money being attached to you as a commodity. And your documentation itself is also represented as a debt instrument. I mean, I just don't, there's just not enough time, it seems, to really go through all of those minutia details. It's more of just understanding humanity, just understanding life and understanding reality with the weapons, with the things that you have, your own reason. And as long as you continue to put these things as external and they don't exist in my reality and this and that, once again, you're just going to be swept over whatever more powerful forces. I mean, this is part of whatever reality you think you belong to, is that anything more powerful is going to cover and rise to power and so on and so forth. You know, insert whatever verbs or actions or whatever adjectives you want to put in there. And so part of it also then has to be that this is more than just people getting fed up. This is just an entire shift of our position in the solar system. I mean, I'll reserve that. I'll reserve it. You know, the whole esoteric aspect, but it still has to do with space. It still has to do with our position, you know, in consciousness, but in space-time, you know, our relative position with the sun, and you know, I mean, just all of these things matter. But to sort of bring it back down, what I really want to build this channel on is talking about how we're going to manage ourselves and stay in communication. If we want a peaceful environment, then we have to create it, and that just means we have to integrate these social mediums. We have to develop platforms using cloud technology and what the internet is based on. I mean, if we can organize programmers, if we can organize people who are just willing to think about this stuff and really implement it with whatever knowledge they have, we have to create a network that is detached from a self-destructive, chaotic mechanism. I mean, you can just see in nature that if you want something to dissolve, you have to stop paying attention to it. You have to pay attention to things that are better for you, you know, more adequate lifestyle, and that's just what we're talking about. Whether it's on an individual basis, a collective basis, once again, stretch that to religious or spiritual basis. It doesn't matter. Scientific. It's all part of the same thing when the intention is basically and essentially the same. So these are the things that basically I would love to branch out with, and my aptitude, I guess if you want to call it, is in the realm of ideas. I witness things and I can instantly draw in collaborative points from different fields based on what I can reason, and I mean they're metaphysical, but they're also scientific. They're also specific inventions. They're also in realms of psychology and sociology and dialogue and the sort of principles that we need to govern society. I mean, so this is just the stuff that we're gonna have to. This stuff is gonna come out more and more as the other paradigm is perishing. Which obviously the most painful thing is that we're still a part of. We're still a part of this, and so I mean, I don't know. We're just gonna have to keep going from here. And I just wanted to make this video to talk about those things and see what you guys think. And until I make the next one or can finally put together and finish this presentation. So I'll catch you on the flip.